Have you ever noticed how your legs sometimes feel weaker than they used to, or how getting up from a chair suddenly takes a little more effort? Maybe you've brushed it off, thinking it's just part of getting older. But what if I told you that this isn't just about aging or doing less? Many seniors experience muscle weakness not simply because they're inactive, but because of little-known changes happening inside the body. Changes we rarely talk about. It's one of those small issues that quietly sneak up on us, yet it can affect our independence, confidence, and even safety. I know it's something many of us worry about silently, and it's easy to feel like you're facing it alone. In this video, I want to share what science has uncovered about why our muscles weaken with age and, more importantly, simple habits you can start today to keep your strength and mobility alive. By the end, you'll discover one surprisingly easy routine that can make a real difference in how you feel each day. So let's walk through this together, because aging doesn't have to mean giving up on feeling strong and capable. If you are not subscribed, subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. Sometimes, as the sun sets and another day slips quietly into the past, you might find yourself sitting alone, staring out the window and wondering where all the years have gone. The days seem to blend. Morning coffee, errands, doctor's appointments, and a few chores around the house. And suddenly, you realize, you're not just another year older. You're 65, maybe 70. Time hasn't just flown by, it's swept you up in its current, and you're left wondering how life could feel so busy, and yet so empty at the very same time. I know I'm not alone in this feeling. For decades, life was a rush. Getting up early, fighting traffic, putting in long hours, worrying about bills, raising kids, and checking boxes on endless to-do lists. Every day seemed urgent, full of responsibilities that felt bigger than myself. There were baseball games and PTA meetings, late nights at the office, grocery shopping after work, the whole cycle repeating like a clock that never winds down. Back then, I told myself I was doing all of it for my family, for the people I loved. I assumed, as so many of us do, that there would always be time for connection, laughter, for simple moments around the table with the people who matter most. But somewhere along the line, those opportunities started slipping through the cracks. A missed phone call here, a rain check on dinner there, we'll get together soon. Until suddenly, soon never comes. Retirement arrives. For years, I dreamed about this. I imagined sleeping in, traveling, and taking up new hobbies. I thought finally, I'd get to rest after all that hard work. But no one ever warned me about the quiet. The thick, almost suffocating quiet that comes with too much time and not enough people to share it with. The house feels bigger, the days longer, and the old routines start to lose their meaning. You open the refrigerator and realize you're buying food for one. You turn on the TV for the company of voices you'll never meet. It's a silence that doesn't refresh. It's a silence that echoes. At first, I didn't even notice. I thought I was just settling in, learning to relax. But after a few months, I realized the stillness wasn't soothing, it was isolating. The peace I longed for felt a lot more like loneliness. I remember one evening in particular. The leaves outside were turning gold and red. It was Thanksgiving, a holiday I used to love, full of laughter, family, and the comforting chaos of too many people crammed into too small a kitchen. But this year, it was just me. I made myself a small plate, sat at the table, and tried to be grateful. But the chair across from me was empty. My phone stayed silent. I felt the weight of every year, every missed opportunity, and every unreturned call. It hit me then. I had built a life filled with activity, but somewhere along the way, I forgot to build connections that would last beyond my working years. I realized how easy it is to fill a calendar but leave your heart empty. So, here's the question that keeps me up at night. The question I wish I'd asked myself decades earlier. How did I end up with so much time, but no one to share it with? It's a question that stings because the answer isn't simple. It's easy to say I was too busy, or that life just got in the way. But the truth is, I chose to prioritize work, chores, and obligations over my relationships. I believed I could always reconnect with old friends later, always find time for family next weekend, and always make up for lost moments after retirement. But relationships are living things. They need care, attention, and time, just like anything else worth keeping. For years, I thought I was being responsible. I thought that by focusing on providing, being reliable, on getting things done, I was showing my love. But there's a difference between being present physically and being present emotionally. I was there for the recitals and the birthdays, but I wasn't always truly there. Not with my heart. And when the job ended, the kids grew up, and the routine changed, I was left with empty hours and a nagging sense of regret. If you're listening to this and it feels familiar, you're not alone. Many people our age have gone through the same thing. Recent research shows that loneliness is becoming one of the most serious health risks for older adults in America. According to studies from Harvard and the National Institute on Aging, seniors who feel isolated have a significantly higher risk of heart disease, depression, and even early death. And yet, loneliness doesn't always look like sadness. It can just feel like numbness, a dull ache, or a longing for connection that you can't quite put into words. It's tempting to brush it off, to believe it's just part of getting older. Everybody loses friends, I used to tell myself. Families drift apart. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be that way. That assumption, that loneliness is inevitable as we age, is simply not true. Yes, life changes, and yes, people move on. But the capacity for connection never disappears, no matter how many birthdays you've had. The first step to changing is challenging that old assumption. So let me share with you the science, because sometimes facts help us see our feelings more clearly. Research from the University of Michigan found that social relationships are as important to health as diet and exercise, sometimes even more so. Studies show that people with strong social ties tend to recover faster from illness, experience less chronic pain, and even have sharper memories. One long-term Harvard study followed hundreds of people from youth into old age, and their findings were simple but profound. Good relationships keep us happier and healthier, period. It's not about the number of friends you have or whether you're married or single. It's about the quality and depth of the connections you maintain. Unfortunately, American culture often teaches us to value independence, productivity, and self-sufficiency above all else. We take pride in doing it ourselves. While that can be empowering, it also makes it easy to hide loneliness or feel ashamed to reach out. When life gets busy or difficult, we withdraw. When we lose touch with a friend or have a disagreement with family, we convince ourselves it's easier to stay silent than to risk rejection or discomfort. Bit by bit, those small choices add up until one day you realize you're living in a world that feels quieter than you'd ever expected. The regret I feel most deeply after 65 isn't about money, missed vacations, or career opportunities. It's this: I regret not nurturing my relationships. The friendships I let fade because I was too busy. The family I didn't call because I figured they'd call me. The neighbor I waved at but never invited over for coffee. The daughter I texted but rarely visited, thinking a message was enough. There are moments I remember. Waking up with a fever and realizing I had no one to ask for help. Feeling low and not knowing who to talk to. Looking at my phone on my birthday, waiting for a message that never came. These moments aren't just sad. They're a wake-up call. They're a reminder that human beings are built for connection, and no matter how much we accomplish, it's the people in our lives who give our days meaning. So what do you do when you find yourself in this position? So much time, but no one to share it with. For a long time, I didn't know where to start. It felt overwhelming, almost embarrassing to admit I was lonely. But change starts with a single step, and sometimes, it's as simple as reaching out, even when you're not sure how it'll be received. Here's what I've learned, both from personal experience and from the stories of others. First, forgiveness of yourself and others is essential. It's easy to beat yourself up for lost time or to resent people who haven't kept in touch. But carrying that bitterness only makes the loneliness deeper. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, but it means letting go of what's holding you back from connecting now. Second, vulnerability is not weakness. For years, I thought being strong meant never admitting I needed people. But real strength is having the courage to say, I miss you, or I'd love to catch up, or even just, I could use a friend. There's power in being open. Science shows that authentic, vulnerable conversations create deeper bonds and release chemicals in the brain that make us feel good, like oxytocin. Third, take practical steps to reconnect. Don't wait for someone else to make the first move. Call a friend, even if it's been years. Write a letter, even if you're nervous about what to say. Invite a neighbor for a cup of tea, or join a local class or group, even if you feel out of place at first. The small efforts matter, and often, you'll find others are just as eager to connect as you are. Let me share the story of someone I met last year at our local senior center. Her name is Mary. She was 78, sharp as a tack, with a laugh that could fill a room. But when I first met her, she was withdrawn, sitting quietly by herself every afternoon. One day, I sat beside her and asked about her favorite memory from childhood. She brightened, and we talked for nearly an hour. Over the next weeks, I learned that Mary had spent years caring for her husband, and after he passed, she felt completely adrift. Her children lived in other states, and her friends had moved or passed away. I didn't realize how lonely I'd become until I stopped having anyone to take care of, she told me. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. But Mary decided, after months of silence, to start showing up. She signed up for a book club, joined a gentle exercise class, and started volunteering at the local food pantry. Bit by bit, her circle grew. She started calling her sister every Sunday, writing letters to her grandchildren, and inviting new friends over for coffee. It wasn't easy at first, she admitted. I felt like a stranger in my own life. But every time I reached out, it got a little less scary, and a little more rewarding. Now, Mary is a regular at our center. She brings cookies, shares stories, and checks in on others who are new or sitting alone. Her life isn't perfect, and she still misses her husband every day. But she told me, I regret the years I let myself drift away from people. But I'm proud of myself for starting again, even if it was late. If there's anything I've learned, from my regrets, from the research, and stories like Mary's, it's that connection doesn't end with age. It only ends when we stop reaching for it. You don't have to accept loneliness as a fact of aging. You can nurture your relationships, no matter how much time has passed. You can build new ones, too. So here's my gentle advice, if you find yourself where I was. Forgive yourself for lost time. Take a risk and reach out, even if your voice shakes. Be the one to invite someone in, rather than waiting for an invitation. Show up, even when you're unsure. And most importantly, remember that you are worthy of love, friendship, and connection, today and every day forward. It's never too late to build the life you want, and it's never too late to let people in. As I sit here, a few years past 65, I still feel pangs of regret for the relationships I let slip away. But each day is a new chance to connect, to share, to make someone, yourself included, feel less alone. If you're reading this, know that your story isn't finished, and your presence matters. Maybe today, you can call a friend you've lost touch with, send a note to a family member, or join a community group that interests you. You never know how one small step can change the course of your life. In the end, what I regret most isn't what I didn't do for work, money, or recognition. What I regret is every moment I could have spent in laughter, in conversation, in true companionship, but chose to be busy instead. I can't go back, but I can move forward. So can you. So tonight, before you turn out the light, ask yourself, who do I want to share my time with, and what small step can I take tomorrow to nurture that connection? Let's not waste another day of silence or loneliness. Let's reach out, because we all deserve to feel seen, heard, and loved at any age. You have more power than you think to shape your days and the story of your life. And even now, even after 65, the best chapters might still be waiting to be written. For a long time, I drifted through my days on autopilot. Retirement was supposed to be a new beginning, a reward for all the years of effort. Instead, I found myself caught in a routine that felt oddly hollow, as if I were a ghost haunting my own house. But the moment that finally woke me up wasn't dramatic or loud. It was the quietest moment I've ever known. It was 3 a.m. I remember lying in bed, eyes wide open, heart thumping in my chest for no obvious reason. The world outside was utterly still. Even the clock seemed to tick more slowly, as if it too had paused to listen to my thoughts. In the darkness, a question floated up. If I didn't wake up tomorrow, would anyone know? It was a question I'd never dared to ask myself before, and it stopped me cold. I lay there, replaying the years in my mind, birthday parties and graduations, work deadlines and anniversaries, the noise and bustle of a life lived on fast forward. I'd always been surrounded by people, but now, in the quiet, I realized how few of those connections had survived the years. My phone was full of contacts, but how many would notice my absence? The truth felt heavy, and a little bit frightening. I knew, in that silent hour, that something had to change. Not tomorrow, not next month. Right now. The years behind me were longer than those ahead, and I didn't want to spend them as a spectator in my own life. I wanted to feel alive again, to rediscover the spark I'd lost along the way. But where does one begin, when it feels like so much time has slipped away? I started small, partly out of fear, and partly because the grand gestures didn't seem possible anymore. But sometimes, it's the smallest actions that set the biggest changes in motion. The first step was picking up the phone. Not to scroll aimlessly, but to dial a number I hadn't called in years. It belonged to my old friend, Jack. We grew up together, went fishing in the summers, laughed over silly pranks in high school, and then, as so often happens, life got busy. Careers, marriages, children. Our conversations faded to Christmas cards and the occasional forwarded joke. For years, I had thought about calling, but something always held me back. Would he remember me? Would he care? That morning after my sleepless night, I told myself that it didn't matter. The risk of reaching out was nothing compared to the risk of letting another year go by in silence. My hands shook as I dialed his number. To my surprise, Jack answered on the second ring. Hello. His voice was a little rougher, maybe a bit older, but unmistakably Jack. There was a pause when I introduced myself, and then laughter. Real, joyful, familiar. Where the heck have you been? He asked. We talked for an hour, catching up on lost years and remembering old times. When we finally said goodbye, I hung up feeling lighter than I had in years. That single call became my new routine. Every week, I made it a point to call Jack or another friend from the past. Sometimes we talked for hours, sometimes only a few minutes. Sometimes people didn't pick up, or the conversation felt awkward at first. But I kept trying, and over time, those calls became a lifeline, a reminder that no matter how far you drift, it's never too late to return. Next, I looked for connections in my community. I'd heard about a gentle yoga class at the senior center, and after some hesitation, I decided to try it. I'd never been the athletic type, and the idea of stretching in front of strangers made me nervous. But I went anyway, wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt, feeling conspicuous among a room full of unfamiliar faces. The instructor was warm and welcoming. She told us to focus on our breath, to listen to our bodies, and to let go of judgment. At first, my body protested every movement. My joints creaked, and I worried that I looked foolish. But as the weeks went by, I started to notice small changes. The stiffness in my back faded. My balance improved. But the biggest surprise wasn't physical at all. It was emotional. I started to recognize the faces around me. We'd chat before class, share stories about our grandkids, and laugh about our struggles to touch our toes. One day, a woman named Linda asked if I wanted to get coffee after class. We sat in a little cafe, sharing memories and dreams, and I realized how much I'd missed a simple, spontaneous connection. Yoga became more than just a class. It was an anchor, a reason to leave the house, to move my body, to connect with others. I started looking forward to it each week, not just for the stretches, but for the friendship and the sense of belonging. Another step was reaching out to family. My sister and I hadn't spoken in years, not out of anger, but simply because life had taken us in different directions. We'd always meant to catch up, but weeks turned into months, then years. I found myself thinking of her often, wondering how she was, whether she ever thought of me. One afternoon, I sat down at the kitchen table, pulled out a pen and some stationery, and wrote her a letter. It wasn't long or complicated. I simply told her I was thinking of her, that I missed our talks, and that I hoped she was well. I slipped it into an envelope and mailed it, half expecting nothing in return. A week later, I received a reply. It was written in her familiar, looping script, full of stories about her children, her garden, and her struggles and joys. We started writing back and forth, then talking on the phone, then visiting in person. The years apart melted away. I wondered why we'd ever let them build up in the first place. Saying, "I love you," became another small, brave act. For years, I'd struggled to express my feelings, especially with my son. Maybe it was the way I was raised, or the belief that love was best shown through action rather than words. But after my sleepless night, I realized how much I wanted him to know, truly know, how much he meant to me. The first time I said it, my voice caught in my throat. He looked surprised, then smiled, and said, "I love you too, Dad." It wasn't awkward after all. It felt like a weight had been lifted from my heart. I began to say it more often, not just to him, but to the people in my life who mattered. I noticed that the more I said it, the more I felt it. The walls I'd built up over the years started to come down, brick by brick. Finally, I joined a book club. It was a small group that met at the local library. I'd always loved reading, but I'd never shared that love with others. The first meeting was intimidating. Everyone seemed to know each other already. But as we discussed the month's novel, I found myself drawn in by their perspectives, their laughter, and their willingness to listen. In that group, I learned something important. Listening is its own kind of connection. I realized that for years, I'd been so focused on being heard that I had forgotten how to truly listen. In the book club, I practiced being present, asking questions, and allowing silence to settle comfortably. The more I listened, the more I learned, not just about books, but about people and myself. These gentle, practical actions, calling an old friend, joining a class, writing a letter, expressing love, learning to listen, weren't dramatic. They didn't make the headlines of my life, but they changed everything. The changes were small at first. I smiled more, laughed more, and found myself looking forward to each day. The world felt a little bigger, a little warmer. I began to notice beauty in the ordinary, a neighbor waving from across the street, the sound of birds in the morning, the taste of fresh coffee shared with a friend. The loneliness I'd carried for so long began to lift, replaced by something gentler, a sense of belonging. One morning, I walked into the senior center, and the receptionist greeted me by name. It was a small thing, but it meant the world. I felt seen. I felt valued. A few months after that first phone call, Jack and I met up for lunch. We sat in a booth at our favorite old diner, swapping stories, reminiscing, and dreaming about the future. I realized that friendship, like any living thing, could be revived with care and attention. The years we'd lost didn't matter. What mattered was the connection we rebuilt. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. There was another day, at yoga class, when Linda introduced me to her daughter. She called me her friend. Those words stayed with me for days. I wasn't just someone passing through. I was part of someone's story again. And in the book club, I made friends who were nothing like me. Different backgrounds, different beliefs, different lives. But we found common ground in our shared love of stories. Every month, we'd gather to discuss our latest read, but what we shared were pieces of ourselves. Looking back, I realize now that the rewards of these small changes far exceeded my expectations. My life became richer, not in possessions or achievements, but in moments. Moments of connection, kindness, and understanding. Smiling after years of loneliness. Hearing my name called in a crowded room. Rebuilding a friendship after 40 years, all because of one phone call. There's a science behind this, too. Studies show that social connection not only lifts our spirits, but also boosts our immune system, lowers our risk of depression, and even helps our memory stay sharp. The brain is wired for connection. It craves it and thrives on it at any age. But the real proof is in the way I feel. I'm more at ease in my skin. I feel hopeful, even when the days are short and the nights are long. I feel less afraid, knowing I'm not alone. Not truly. If you're listening to this, I hope you hear not just my story, but the invitation behind it. You don't need a dramatic moment to make a change. You just need one small, brave step. Call an old friend. Try a new class. Write that letter. Say, I love you. Join a group, or simply listen with an open heart. The rewards may be quiet at first, a smile, a memory, a sense of belonging, but they build on each other. Over time, those small changes create a new life, one filled with connection, meaning, and joy. And if you're wondering whether it's too late, let me assure you, it's not. No matter how many birthdays you've had, the best days can still be ahead. All it takes is a willingness to reach out, to try, to say yes to life again. I never imagined that my turning point would come in the quiet of a sleepless night. I never thought that simple actions, a phone call, a class, a letter, could heal so much of what I'd lost. But they did, and they can for you too. So if you find yourself where I once was, wondering if anyone would notice if you disappeared, let me tell you, the world is waiting for you to come back. Your friends, your family, your community, they may be more ready for you than you realize. Start today. Take one step. And watch as the world opens up, one gentle, powerful change at a time. Some moments in life sneak up on us, not with fireworks or loud announcements, but with a gentle ache, a tug at the heart you can't quite explain. Maybe it's the hush of your living room after the phone stops ringing, or the familiar creak of your favorite chair as you settle in for another evening, only to realize the sun has set and the house is still quiet. Perhaps it's that old song on the radio, the one that stirs up memories of people who used to fill your days. Friends from decades past, family whose laughter you still hear in your mind, loved ones who once felt as close as your breath. It's easy to believe that this kind of quiet is just part of getting older, that life simply narrows down with age, and that silence is the inevitable cost of years well lived. We tell ourselves that being alone is normal, that the empty chair at the dinner table is just what happens as families move, friends drift apart, and the pace of life slows down. You might even catch yourself thinking, everyone goes through this. Why should I be any different? But if you're honest, if you let yourself truly feel it, there's more to the story. Maybe you notice a yearning that doesn't quite go away, a longing for connection that runs deeper than you care to admit. Maybe, like so many others, you're haunted by a quiet regret. The feeling that, somewhere along the way, you lost touch with the people who once mattered most, and now you're not sure how to find your way back. I want to share something with you now, something I wish someone had told me years ago. I'm not sharing it to complain, or to stir up sorrow. I'm sharing it because I believe there is power in naming our truths, in speaking them out loud, and in realizing we're not alone. If you see yourself in my story, even just a little, there is still time. That's not just wishful thinking. That's the wisdom that comes from living, from falling and rising and falling again. That's the hope I want to place in your hands today. The reversal question. Is this just the way it has to be? It's so easy to accept loneliness or disconnectedness as just another fact of aging. Our culture quietly encourages this belief, doesn't it? That's life, people say with a shrug. Things change. But what if that's not the whole truth? What if this quiet ache isn't an unavoidable part of growing older, but rather a gentle nudge, a message from our hearts that we're meant for more? Science tells us something important. Social connection isn't just a luxury. It's as vital to our well-being as good food or regular exercise. Researchers at Harvard, Stanford, and the National Institute on Aging have spent decades studying people as they age, and time after time, their findings are the same. Those who maintain warm relationships, no matter how simple or small, live longer, recover more quickly from illness, and even report less physical pain. One study famously found that the quality of our relationships is the single biggest predictor of happiness and health in later life. Not money, not fame, not even genetics. But here's what's even more fascinating. It's not about having a huge social circle. It's about depth. A single, meaningful conversation can lift our spirits in ways that dozens of casual acquaintances cannot. Even brief moments, a smile shared on a morning walk, or a phone call with an old friend, can ease stress, calm our bodies, and light up the parts of our brains responsible for joy. So if you've ever wondered, is this just the way it has to be? Let the answer be no. It's not inevitable. Loneliness, regret, or the slow fading of old friendships, these are not permanent fixtures in our lives unless we allow them to be. Change is always possible. And often, it starts smaller and simpler than we imagine. The truth behind the quiet. Why do we drift apart? It helps to understand why so many of us end up feeling alone, even after a lifetime full of family and friendships. Life, with all its demands, has a way of pulling us in different directions. There are years, sometimes even decades, when it feels like you're constantly juggling work, raising children, caring for aging parents, or tending to your home. Friendships that once felt effortless can start to feel like another chore on an already crowded calendar. You might tell yourself, "I'll call her next week," or "We'll get together when things calm down." But the weeks become months, the months become years, and soon the distance between you grows so quietly, so gently, that you hardly notice until you do. Then there's the pain of loss. As we age, we say goodbye to people we love, sometimes suddenly, sometimes after a long illness. Grief can make us withdraw, even from those who remain. We worry about being a burden, about not having the same energy or interests as before. Sometimes pride or fear of rejection holds us back from reaching out first. Other times, we simply don't know how to start the conversation again after so much time apart. And yet, the human heart is a resilient thing. It remembers the warmth of old friendships, the comfort of a familiar voice, and the laughter that lingers long after the joke is forgotten. It's never too late to reach for a connection, even if it feels awkward or uncertain at first. Simple, gentle solutions. A path back to connection. So what can you do if you recognize yourself in this story? How do you begin, especially when the idea of rebuilding old bridges, or building new ones, feels daunting? Start small. It starts so small that it almost seems silly. Write down the names of 3 people you used to be close to. They might be friends from childhood, colleagues from work, neighbors you shared coffee with, or family who once filled your home with noise and stories. Don't overthink it. Just trust your heart to choose the names that matter. Now, pick one. Yes, just one. Today, call them. Or write a note. Or send an email. The words don't have to be perfect. You don't have to apologize for the years gone by or fill the silence with explanations. A simple, "I was thinking of you," or "I miss our conversations," is enough. You might be surprised at the warmth waiting on the other end. You might find that they, too, have been longing for a connection and didn't know how to reach out. If a phone call feels like too much, try something even gentler. Smile at someone as you walk through your neighborhood or local park. It could be a fellow dog walker, the cashier at your grocery store, or a neighbor tending their garden. A smile is a quiet invitation, a reminder that we are seen and that we matter. Maybe you try striking up a brief conversation with someone new at your senior center, at church, or even while waiting for your coffee. "How's your day going?" is sometimes all it takes to open the door to a new friendship. And if you're feeling especially brave, consider joining a group or activity you've always been curious about. It could be a book club, a volunteer opportunity, or a class at your local community center. Remember, everyone else in the room is hoping to connect, too, even if they don't say it out loud. A real-life story. Evelyn's Second Chance. Let me tell you about Evelyn, a woman I met not long ago. She's 74, with a gentle way about her and a voice that always sounds like she's on the edge of laughter. For many years, Evelyn was the center of her family, hosting holiday dinners, calling her children every Sunday, and keeping track of everyone's birthdays. But as her children grew up and started families of their own, the phone calls became less frequent. Her husband passed away. Old friends moved or passed on, and the invitations dwindled until her calendar sat mostly blank. She told herself this was just how life worked, that she shouldn't expect more. Still, the ache of loneliness grew, especially in the evenings. One day, Evelyn decided to do something different. She wrote down the names of 3 people: her childhood friend Nancy, her brother Paul, and her neighbor Janet. It had been years since she'd spoken to Nancy, months since she'd called Paul, and she'd only waved to Janet from across the driveway. She started with Nancy, finding her number in an old address book. Her hand shook as she dialed, but when Nancy answered, the years melted away. They talked for hours, swapping stories about their grandchildren and remembering the adventures of their youth. Evelyn said she felt 10 years younger just from that conversation. The next week, she called her brother Paul, who admitted he'd been feeling lonely, too. They started meeting for lunch once a month, rediscovering the bond that had grown dusty but never truly disappeared. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. With Janet, the neighbor, Evelyn simply baked an extra batch of cookies one Saturday and brought them over. They shared coffee on the porch and soon discovered a shared love of gardening. Now, they trade plants and swap stories about the neighborhood. Evelyn told me, "The hardest part was picking up the phone. But each time I did, my world grew a little bigger. I realized I wasn't the only one waiting for someone else to make the first move." Gentle encouragement. The power is still in your hands. If Evelyn's story resonates with you, let it be a gentle push. Don't wait for the regret to grow deeper. Don't let the fear of awkwardness or the passing of time convince you that it's too late. The world is full of people who want the same thing you do, to feel remembered, included, and valued. Even if your efforts aren't returned the first time, keep reaching out. Not every attempt will lead to a deep friendship, but each one is a reminder, to yourself and others, that you are alive, that you care, and that connection is still possible. Maybe you try the 3 names exercise this week. Maybe you smile at a stranger tomorrow. Maybe you join a group or volunteer for a cause close to your heart. Every step counts, no matter how small. And remember, the benefits are more than emotional. Science shows that social connection boosts your immune system, sharpens your mind, and can even ease pain. You're not just adding happiness to your life. You're adding years and quality to those years. A final note, you're not alone, and there is still time. Let me close by returning to that simple confession. I'm not sharing this story to complain. I'm sharing it because if you see yourself in these words, there is still time. There is time to reach out, to mend old bonds or build new ones, to turn loneliness into laughter and memories. You don't have to make all the changes at once. Start with just one call, one note, one smile. If you do, you might find your world expanding, little by little, each day. The truth is that we are all connected in ways we sometimes forget. No one's story is over until the very end. The chapters you write now, at 65, 75, 85, can be every bit as full of meaning, love, and friendship as those that came before. So please, don't wait for regret to teach you what matters most. Write down 3 names. Make that call. Smile at someone on your walk. Let this be the moment your new chapter begins. The power to change is still in your hands. And the best days, some of them at least, are still waiting for you to reach out and claim them. As we come to the end of the story, I want you to pause for a moment and reflect, not just on my journey, but on your own. Maybe you recognized pieces of your life in what I've shared. Maybe you felt the weight of old regrets or the ache of distance from people who once meant everything. If so, remember, you are not alone. What you feel is real and shared by so many, even if we don't always talk about it. But the most important lesson, perhaps, is this. It's never too late to change your story. Whether you're 65, 75, or even 90, every day brings a new chance to reach out, to rebuild, and to reconnect. The power to transform loneliness into connection, regret into hope, still lies within your hands. So, as you move forward from here, I invite you to take one small, brave step. Call that old friend. Write that letter. Smile at someone on your morning walk. These simple acts can light up not only your life but the lives of others who are waiting for a connection, too. If you learned something meaningful today, or if you're inspired to try even one new thing, I'd love to hear about it. Please share your thoughts or experiences in the comments below. Your story may be the encouragement someone else needs. And if this video touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Remember, our stories are still unfolding. Together, we can make the next chapters the most beautiful ones yet.